Hello and welcome to Lightmap from SIFTER. On Lightmap, we explore what it takes to make video games and interactive media, and we meet creative teams from all around the world. You'll meet new developers, artists, musicians, researchers, and more. My name is Gianni di Giovanni. Thank you for joining me, and this week we're taking to the skies for some really heartfelt conversations aboard a floating hospital ship as we explore the voices and the sounds of Wayward Strand by Ghost Pattern. Our guests on Lightmap this week are Nancy Curtis, an actor who plays the protagonist, Casey Beaumaris. Hello, Nancy.
Hi, thank you for inviting me to talk about this.
And Maize Wallin, a sound designer, audio programmer and composer and frequent guest of SIFTER podcast. G'day, Maize. How are you going?
Really good. Nice to be here again.
We're going to learn a little bit more about Wayward Strand. So it's a narrative game that's set on a flying hospital ship in an alternate history in rural Victoria. But before we get into that, let's find out what's been making the news this week with the top stories on the latest episode of Walkthrough, SIFTER's news podcast.
Hi, I'm Kyle Pauletto.
And I'm Fiona Bartholomaeus.
And here are the top stories this week on Walkthrough, SIFTER's weekly news podcast for Sunday, 11th of September.
Cyberpunk 2077 gets a big final expansion called Phantom Liberty next year.
Overwatch players aren't happy about a plan to lock characters into the new Battle Pass.
Splitgate devs say they're moving on to their next free-to-play first-person shooter due to massive success.
And we wrap all the games announced at the Disney Marvel Gaming Showcase.
You can get every episode of Walkthrough for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, on our website sifter.com.au, or wherever you like to listen every Sunday.
Wayward Strand is a narrative adventure game set on a flying airship where you take on the role of Casey Beaumaris, a 14-year-old journalist. It's all about the life and stories of the people who live and work on this floating hospital ship, and each of these characters move in real time with different paths to explore each time you play. And importantly, each of those stories get written down in Casey's notebook. So, Nancy, I want you to tell me, who is Casey Beaumaris to you?
I reckon I was pretty similar to Casey when I was about her age. She's definitely in that kind of awkward stage of her teenage years. She's trying to figure out who she is, and she's definitely very introverted. Yeah, she's quite awkward. But yeah, she's, like I said, she's in that stage where she's trying to figure out who she is and what she enjoys, obviously, which is journalism most of the time. But yeah.
I'm just wondering, when you were playing this character, can you tell me, was there some of those memories of being an awkward 14-year-old that you're able to sort of draw on when you were playing this character?
Totally, yeah. It definitely brought me back to those awkward years. I hate using this word, but she is a bit of a tomboy. And I reckon I was a bit like that, just like a bit moody, angsty. So I guess it was fun kind of reliving those funny times, I guess, through her, yeah.
And now, Nancy, you probably don't remember the 1970s. I don't remember the 1970s. Can you tell me what it was like to, get into the idea of a character who's in sort of this alternate history of the 1970s in rural Victoria? Can you tell me, was there any research or anything you did to kind of get yourself in the mindset of a teen of the 70s?
I didn't do that much research because I felt like straight away I found it easy to relate to her. But I guess definitely a factor would have been that, she doesn't have a phone or anything and she's not really occupied. But I guess when she was at the ship, helping her mum out, she kind of had to find ways to entertain herself. And I find that that's so lovely because, you see so many, I feel like I sound like an old person saying this, but you see so many, little kids and, they're just, got an iPad in their face, whereas, she has to kind of, find a way to entertain herself, and I guess she does that through her journalism. But just imagining what that would be like without all those distractions, I guess.
One thing that was really cool when we first had Nancy audition. Actually, I think you sent through a tape, and Georgia Simmons, who's written half of the game, but also was the director of the voiceover. She sent through Nancy's audition tape and said, all right, everyone, have a listen to this. And it sounded just like the Casey in our heads, and it sounded like it was from the 70s also, that it was an accent that was a bit dated back. Like,
I didn't know what I was doing, but glad I nailed it.
It sounded like you did. And I remember, you had a couple of techniques or something to get back into the accent in the studio.
Like a bit of like Milo kind of veggie. Yeah, a few of those words. Yeah, they were my go-tos. Yeah.
Can you list them out for us? What are your Casey Beaumaris framing words?
Milo most of the time, just like Milo, like yeah. That was always good. That always snapped me back into her, I guess. Yeah.
Maize, there are a number of amazing actors who are, portraying the characters in this game. Can you tell me what it was like when you first got to hear some of these voices and how they lined up with the minds that you had, the voices that you had in your mind?
I think Nancy was the only one who was just like, oh, holy shit, it's just come to life exactly like in our minds. And I think that's because some of the other actors like and Charleston and Peter Paltos worked with us back in 2016 when we first did our demo. And, they kind of went out on a limb to be involved back then, and then we were lucky that they had an okay time and said yes to come back in 2022, which I find hilarious talking about with Nancy here, that we started making the game in 2016. So yeah, it was really great to kind of hear those actors continue to bring those characters to life, especially because we'd pretty much rewritten everything that they were saying. There were very few scenes that they said exactly the same way, although whenever there was a line that especially Jason and I had been listening to nonstop for 6 years, and then they reset it in a slightly different way, we would lose it. We would just be like, what? There's the line. So yeah, and then I guess for the actors who are new to this round, it was always a little bit different. It's always the actors fill in the gaps. It's cheesy, they bring it to life, but I guess you don't know what you don't know until the actor adds it, and then you're like, okay, you've finished writing it. So yeah, sometimes it's a little bit unexpected, when we have been listening to the same VO for 6 years and then it changes to a new actor. That took a little bit of getting used to. Yeah, a bit of a shock to the system sometimes, but I don't know. Everyone who's in the game is perfect for their characters. Yeah.
Maize, what was the recording process like? I know that you were, part of the team that brought it all together, and you had some voice directors who were looking after that. But can you tell us how much of an effort was put in? Because this is quite a big voice cast and quite an elaborate thing for a small independent game to be able to pull off.
Yeah, for an indie game and for an Australian game, it just really massive. So we have 20,000 lines of voiceover, which Tifa Newsom, who is an ADR specialist who's based in Brisbane, and we've worked together on a game previously, and I brought her back on to Wayward to help deal with the voice editing. She said that's the equivalent of 18 feature films. Yeah, Nancy. So, yeah, puts it into perspective.
Yeah.
And we recorded across Melbourne, Sydney, London, and Vienna. With because we have actors. I
had no idea that you'd been recording all these places. I was like, what?
Yeah. We have actors who are either there's a couple of Danish characters and there's an Austrian character, so they had to be overseas. And then there are actors who are based in Sydney, and it's just worked out a little bit better that we record them over there instead of try and get them down here. And the technical process of matching all of the studios was really fun, but, we had to do a lot of A/B testing, so getting the studios to record some lines, send them back, record them from different distances from the microphone. Sometimes, we'd ask for a dry room with no character, and sometimes we'd still get a bit, so it'd be like, could you re-record with some more panels or put up some curtains? Or a couple of times it just didn't work out with the studio. They just couldn't accommodate what we needed. And, whenever we found something a little weird and, we're like, we've got to fix that before we actually go and record the characters, we would know that fixing it now in pre-production will save us hours, days, weeks, months of work in post, And that's like with the actors too, it was like, all right, we're really trying to minimize any retakes of anything. So, we're just going to get you to run the line until it's right, which, usually didn't take long. But sometimes, the actor would loop the line a bit. And it was really with Tifa, and then also with Alison Walker, who's a Melbourne sound designer and musician who I worked with. We had to kind of invent this pipeline of how to deal with 20,000 lines of dialogue. So we've got Pro Tools files for every single scene. We've got tools that export the dialogue from Ink and Unity, so our game engine tools, export it into scripts for the actors that are clear to read, and also export big TSV files and then more spreadsheets, which would then be converted into Pro Tools files. And we have a lot of custom tooling to deal with bulk amounts of VO. And then in the editing process, we had, a whole lot of Pro Tools presets and a whole lot of RX presets, and then more spreadsheets. And we also, in the recording process, kind of had to figure out, all right, so when you record a line or a scene, you start from this marker and that means X, Y, Z. And if you start from here, then it means this. And in the room, when we say, all right, it's this character clip, blah, 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 line number, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, just a whole lot of little things that meant that we saved a lot of time and we got things as right as possible the first time. Yeah, so it was quite intense, but, it was when we worked with the studios overseas and we were recording remotely, the engineers at those studios really sat into our rhythm within 20 minutes, and we might have to do like 5 full days of recording with them. And we did a few technical meetings into the lead up as well. And I'm sending like PDFs and videos and walkthroughs. And we got a lot of feedback saying that we're the most organized clients that anyone has ever had. And it's like, well, yeah, that's what needs to happen. And from all the engineers and from all the actors, everyone actually seemed to have a really good time, which we, it was a constant worry for us as well. But yeah, Nancy, what did you feel like?
Curious, Nancy, from your perspective, hearing all of that in the background, what was it like to actually be there and record the lines for Casey?
Yeah, honestly, it was pretty crazy. It's definitely, like I've said this before, but it's probably the most interesting thing I've kind of been a part of or seen. Just the whole process of, Maize and Alison, the recording process kind of blew me away. But yeah, I guess when settling into it, I found it a little bit challenging just because it's very different to your usual kind of acting environment that you'd have in like school productions and plays, where you kind of get to develop that connection and like chemistry with the other actors. And so, yeah, it was kind of that process of having to like kind of create the world for Casey in my own head and how she would interact with the other characters, which I found challenging at first, but definitely Georgia and Jason and Maize and Alison made that so easy for me just to settle in, because it's definitely a new and strange experience for me. But yeah, they made it so easy to settle into. And yeah, I had a lot of fun figuring it out, yeah, I guess.
What is it like to then hear the final product when you see all these different voices, scenes that you were part of, combined with the performances from other actors from all around the world?
Yeah, it's pretty weird. It's hearing my voices with other people I've never met. I'm like, it's such a weird experience, and it's so cool to like, even though I've never met these people, like you really feel the chemistry and connection between the characters, which is just, yeah, it's cringe, but it's, you know, it's kind of magical the way they all, yeah, you can kind of really feel the energy between them, even though, yeah, I haven't met any of them. But yeah, it's just awesome seeing it come together. I don't know how they did it, but yeah.
Nancy was one of the most consistent actors. We got to this point where I don't remember what the word was, but it might have been like oh, or see ya or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like, oh, what was it? It was okay. There were so many okays, and there were so many, yeah, see ya or sure, yeah.
And we got to the point where Nancy would say it one way and then Georgia would say, oh, no, the other one.
Yeah.
And then Nancy would nail it straight away.
But like I'd say it so many times I'd lose its meaning. Like I felt like I was a robot by the end. I was like, I don't even know what this means. Like, okay, that's okay. Okay, that's okay. Okay, 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 okay. It's been okay. Okay, 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 okay. That's okay. Okay, 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 okay. I'm okay. I think you'll be okay. Are you okay? Oh, okay.
Can you tell me what are some of the your favourite performances and moments that really sort of crystallised for you both that you were working on something pretty special?
Yeah. All right. Everyone on the dev team has cried now at some point, and it happened with the voiceover. Like everyone in the voiceover team, we all managed to cry in the studio for some reason. And I'm getting like goosebumps now. And then the rest of the dev team, you know, would be when they were like playing through a scene because they had to test something, and then they'd just be totally taken off guard by what the hell was happening. And yeah, I remember just kind of counting, you know, as each team member was like, yep, okay, it's happened. Yeah, I think is a little bit spoilery, but there's nah, it's not. I won't say it in a spoilery way. It's someone's writing a letter, and as they're kind of reading to themselves what they're writing, that was when I cried in the studio. Yeah, I think a different way to interpret it though as well, I think, has been especially the older women who have worked on the game, when they talk about what they've felt when reading the script, or especially actually they tell us that they've talked to their friends about the project and about, you know, the characters in the project and what it means to be playing characters with actual depth. I think that's when we're like, they actually mentioned this to their friends. What? Yeah, and that has been a bit of a crystallization that, what we're doing is pretty special.
Yeah, I just building off from what you were saying, but I was showing my grandma a few snippets of like some trailers and snippets from the game. And first of all, like, she couldn't wrap her head around how, like, my voice was on a cartoon character. But anyway, she was so cute about it, and I think she was just so excited that kind of her age group was being represented in. Obviously, she hasn't played video games or hasn't seen a lot of video games, but she was just, like, so intrigued that someone of her age would be in a video game. And I thought that was so cool because, especially for me, I haven't played a lot of video games and never really, like, been a part of that community. But the games definitely, like, changed my, like, preconceived ideas about video games and its associations. Like, normally I'd be like, oh, you know, like, shooting games and Call of Duty and violence, but, like, this is just such a heartwarming game that really, like, addresses just, like, real life issues and stuff that's happening. Yeah, I just thought that was really awesome to see her reaction, I guess.
Nancy, I've played a lot of games, and there actually aren't even that many characters that are in games that are, you know, young teenagers, girls as the main character in a game. That's pretty rare as well. How does it feel to be playing a character like that when, you know, you are one of the few examples that people get to point to as a different way to tell a video game story?
Yeah, I mean, it feels great to be able to play this young character that is a girl and have that representation, have that being represented in video games. Yeah, it's a good question. I guess because I don't play a lot of video games, but yeah, I think it's just nice to see more of that representation, because I think normally when I think about video games, not that I don't know if this will come across the right way, but I feel like when I am thinking about video games, I think about, like I said before, Call of Duty and a lot of those kind of masculine, I guess, games. And so it's so nice to, I guess, be a part of something that's a bit different to that. I don't know, I feel like you didn't answer that well, but yeah, sorry.
I think it'll be interesting when, you know, in the team we talk a lot about wanting people to get it, you know, to understand the game. And I think that while we're all so inside it, it'll be, it might only be when other people talk about it that we kind of understand the impacts of it outside of ourselves.
Totally, yeah.
As we're talking, we're about a week out from when the game will be available for people to play. What does it feel like to be at this point, particularly for you, Maize, because, you know, you've been working on this for a while. It's so close. I remember seeing it in a small office you had on a laptop at one point many years ago during Games Week, and now it's almost here for people to be able to play.
Yeah, I'm very, very emotional, constantly on edge, and constantly on the verge of crying, pretty much. And I think a lot of the people on the team are like that. Even people who haven't been on the team for as long. Yeah. And I think that it's kind of been about the team environment. We absorb people in very easily. People kind of become as attached to it as we do very quickly. But yeah, I think, you know, we're nervous, sad, agitated, happy, all of the emotions.
How about you, Nancy? How do you feel? It's just a little time before people, people you might be, your peers at school might be playing this game. What does it feel like to be so close to when people can play it?
Oh, yeah, it's pretty exciting. It felt so far away when we finished recording, but it's definitely come around quickly. I guess I'm just excited for people to get to just, I don't know, experience. I just think it's such a special, I think it's such a special thing that you guys have made, and I just, like, can't wait for people to enjoy it and really connect with the characters. And yeah, I guess I'm just really excited for people to see it. I know people at school have mentioned it already, and they're, like, you know, adding it to their wish list on their Switch and stuff, which is cool. Yeah. But yeah.
it did get to the point where Nancy would reply to Casey or Nancy in the exact same manner, and we were joking. Hopefully, Nancy's schoolmates hear this and call her Casey from now on. Don't do that.
Yeah, it would sometimes I would malfunction a little bit, and you'd get a little bit of Casey in me. Like after I finished the recordings, it'd take me a while just to like adjust back to my usual self, I guess.
I'm honestly so excited for a chance for people to play it and to see it in its final form. Thank you to you both for joining us on this episode, telling us a little bit about the performances, the collection of all of this sound. Can't wait to put my headphones on and just absorb. Thank you both for joining us on this episode.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Thanks, Gianni.
Wayward Strand is out on the 15th of September. You can pick it up on Xbox, PlayStation, Switch and PC. SIFTER is produced by Nicholas Kennedy, Fiona Bartholomaeus, Daniel Ang and Adam Christou. Mitch Lowe is our senior producer, and my name is Gianni, and I'm the executive producer. Thanks to Omny Studio for their support of SIFTER's 3 podcasts. You can find everything we've talked about, including an interesting story we did a little while ago about the accessibility of Wayward Strand. You can go back into the archives and check that out. We'll link that on the show notes for this episode as well. And that website that you can find all of this cool stuff is sifter.com.au. You can find more about the guests and the games that we've featured. If you've enjoyed the show, the best free thing you can do to support us is to tell your friends. If you know someone who might not be into games, maybe don't know exactly what they are or what the big deal is, maybe send them this interview, because this could be a way that they could rethink what it is to play interactive stories, especially ones made here in Australia. That's all the time we have for this episode. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, have fun.